Okay, so as everybody knows, this is really kind of a blasé election because there's only 2 contested races. I don't know, is Steve in the hall, the constable? No, he had been sick, so he wasn't sure he was going to be able to make it tonight. Secondly, we're going to ask that the Housing Authority candidates, Henry Fernandez and Donna Bronk, who are running for the 3-year term, please come up. Rudy Santos is unable to make it and has asked Bob White to do an introductory for him. Bob will speak to you for a few moments, but he may not answer questions for Rudy. And Mr. Lockwood just contacted me today and he's sick, so he won't be here either. So it's just you 2 guys.
Oh.
Bob, would you, I'm gonna ask Bob to read Rudy's. Yes, sit down, please. Did you bring your paper? Okay. Just, if you would just, say what you want for Rudy and then we can go ahead.
I'm Bob White, a good friend of Rudy Santos. Rudy regrets that he can't be here tonight. His wife, Marion, has been seriously ill for 3 weeks. She's just returned from Boston to a rehab hospital in New Bedford, and his mind is not on this particular event. So if you'll excuse him from that, he regrets he can't be here, and I would only ask that you remember Rudy at the polls. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And Henry, you're the incumbent, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We have running for the 3-year term of Housing Authority, Henry Fernandez, who is the incumbent, and Donna Bronk. So Donna will go first and introduce herself. She will have between 5 and 7 minutes, and then Henry can go after that. Donna, go ahead.
Not incumbent, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
I'm not incumbent.
Oh, you're not an
No,
incumbent?
no.
Well,
But
you're,
it's all right.
it's alphabetic anyway.
That's all right, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that came out good.
No.
Good evening, and thank you for all for coming. Again, my name is Donna Bronk.
Gotta talk up, Donna.
I'm not a townie, guys. I've only lived here since 1968. Okay, thank you. My former teacher.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's going to be hard enough to hear, so could we stop with the conversations in the back, please? Thank you. Out of respect to our candidates, I would like everyone to pay attention.
I'm a retired regional property manager, and I have devoted over 30 years of experience in the housing industry. I'm proud to say that I'm a housing expert. I have a degree in business management. I went to the Wareham High School system. I completed my CPM program from the Institute of Real Estate Management out of Chicago. I'm a HUD occupancy specialist. I'm a real estate agent. Property management and the managing of Red Rock and Agawam, it's not a field you grow up to and inspire to become a property manager. You kind of fall into it. And you either love it or you hate it. And I have a deep passion for the housing business, particularly affordable housing. I was involved with over 2,000 units, Boston, Cambridge, Berkshires, occasionally called to Newport. But I was involved with these units for many years with a very, very reputable company. And I learned a lot. I climbed the ladder, and I was involved with acquisitions. I was involved with capital planning, serious capital planning. I've managed over several $1 million worth of capital planning improvements in our buildings to constantly keep them upgraded. And that's kind of what I see is what we're facing with our current stock here is we don't have the funds, we don't we haven't had the initiative of folks to go after the funds, and we need to plan to make these homes a better place for our seniors. I'm a senior too, and I'm appalled. In all the units that I've managed, I have never, none of my stock has ever looked as bad as some of the units at Agawam that I had seen. And they're good structural buildings. There are buildings, and we need to fix them. And we need to make them, bring them up to code, make them a nice place to live. I was on the finance committee here in Wareham for 5 years. I was the chairman for 2 years. I was the vice chairman for 2 years, and I learned a lot. And I was introduced to the Wareham Housing Authority at that time. And when Mr. Paulson and myself and Bob White, we were all on the finance committee, we went down and we visited a few people at Agawam, and we looked at their units. And we asked the director at the time, have the selectmen been down here? No. Well, who's helping you? Nobody. Who's helping you? Nobody. Nobody in the town. There's no funds out there. There's got to be funds somewhere. There has to be funds somewhere. And if the DHC, the Department of Housing and Community Development, needs to do their job and fix those units up for our seniors, because I feel that they're appalling. If I get in, I'm going to, I don't know the program that they're under right now directly, but I have worked with Mass Housing, I've worked with HUD, I've worked with Community Development, I've worked with the Housing Authority in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I've worked with the Boston Housing Authority. I know how we should run our job. And I would like the opportunity to go out and give it my best shot and do the best I can for the community. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Henry, go ahead.
Okay. I got to stand up for this one. My name is Henry Fernandez. I am the liaison for Agawam Village and Redwood. I know what's going on. I know about this falling apart. I've been there for 5 years, and I've seen everything happen and what happened. I feel that I am the best person for it because I am the liaison and I live there. I know the figures. I know the carpentry. I know the basics, how a place should be run. Right now, we have good management with the people we have there. But we want somebody with some practical knowledge, which I have. I used to work in the construction business. I had an office in the town hall for the handicap. I worked on the Tremont Dam. I come with a lot of experience, and I want to announce it to the town and to the townspeople, and for the seniors. I am for the seniors. I live there. I take care of the seniors every day. If we do get a little bit of money, the money comes in, I want to be there. I want to be there so I can see the construction, to see if it's going right or it's going wrong. It needs that much. And it also needs the help of the people here to help it work. The selectmen, mostly. The people on the finance committee, again, to help this thing go along. It can't work by itself. The seniors need the help. We have a lot of people with brains there now. We have Mr. Pilatus. We have Bob. We have a woman in the office that just came in. It's going to work. So thank you very much. This is what I got to say. I am their liaison now. And even though I win or lose, I'm still the liaison. But if I fit in this other position, which I'm running for right now, it'll work that much better. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you too for
Thank you.
trying for the same job.
Good luck.
Okay.
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 Do we have any questions for our housing authority candidates?
Gotta be somebody out there.
Looking at this audience, most of you are senior citizens, so come on. Somebody's gotta have a question. Come on, Jack. Figure out something.
Where's holding me down?
Yes, Mr. Titlebaum.
Yes, I've got one. I know from my dealings with the Housing Authority as a selectman, and the fact that we have a couple of Community Preservation Committee articles on the warrant that the selectmen voted to put on to support the Housing Authority with some much-needed repair. Our understanding is from Mr. Paulides that the Department of Housing and Community Development wanted that sort of support, wanted community preservation money or other money to the extent that we could allocate it. I hate to tell you we're broke, so we just had that one source to go to. Now that we've done that, now that, assuming town meeting goes ahead and approves both of those projects for funding, how do either of you plan to leverage that spending into keeping DHCD to uphold the terms of the bargain, you might say, that they've struck with us?
Okay, Mr. Fernandez, would you
Yes.
like to answer that first, please?
DHCD seems to be compromising with us. At one time, they backed away, but right now, I think that they will come through and give us the difference of the money. We're trying to go with building number 2, which has 8 units. And I think the money that you're talking about, they will make up the difference. I talked to some of them, just Mrs., the architect, and somebody from their office for a little bit of changes that I asked them to make. But I think they're gonna come forward and the money's gonna be there, if that'll answer your question.
Thank you.
Okay, Donna?
I personally think DHCD should give Wareham whatever they need, because they haven't done their job in years. They're the ones that should be making sure, they should be putting all the money in here. They have neglected the Wareham Housing Authority, and we have, frankly, until the last year, we haven't had a Board of Selectmen that really cared about the housing industry. So with the support of the Wareham Selectmen, the support of the Wareham Finance Committee, the support of Mr. Fernandez and his group, and the Housing Authority, a well-run housing authority, will hold their feet right to the stones. And frankly, I know Judy Weber, who is, we grew up in the housing industry together, and she's the lead consultant for DHCD. And she said that they're totally embarrassed by the way they've let our stock go. So I think that DHCD is gonna be very helpful. But I think somebody's gonna have to make sure that they're helpful.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Judith?
Are there any plans to build or acquire more stock? Not just fix up what we have, but build and acquire more?
As far as I know, there is. They've put in for the one in Wareham. They've put in into Boston in the office. We haven't even got last year's monies to run the whole thing. That is coming. what we use right now as money was put aside for something else. Right, it's been, and I can't tell you exactly what it is, but they've put in for at least 3 or 4 different monies. And I think maybe 2 or 3 of them will come alive. Now, it's too bad that Bob wasn't here, or Rudy wasn't here, or somebody from the office. Again, I'm just the guy that takes care of everything for the seniors.
Okay, thank you.
But
Okay,
What was the question again, Judy?
Are there plans to
I
build
gotcha.
or acquire more stock?
Well, we all know what happened with Westfield. And if you saw the RFP for Westfield, and I initially supported it, I went out on a limb, but it was just ridiculous. They were holding developers to unrealistic terms. So it was all or nothing. I know at Agawam, there is some property there that possibly a couple of buildings could be with 4 to 8 more units. You've got buildings now that are being turned over or thinking that you've got, somebody said, well, what are they gonna do with the Little Red Schoolhouse? Why couldn't you make 3 or 4 apartments down there, affordable housing? There's lots of possibilities. And I think that the Affordable Housing Trust, we are working with contractors to build units and put restrictions on them, affordable housing restrictions. We need to fix what we have now for the seniors, but we also have to look at creating new affordable housing because, let's face it, Wareham's a blue-collar community. We're all survivors here. And folks, for the most part, they make a living any way they can. So we're not a rich community, but we are a strong community, and we will work through this. But I do believe that there are a lot of possibilities, and those are just a couple of what I see.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you both very much.
Thank you. Thank you again, my friend.
yes, thank you very much.
Next, we have Dr. Cliff Sylvia from the school department. He is running unopposed, but has graciously agreed to be here tonight to answer any questions you might have and to speak with you. Dr. Sylvia. Mel, I don't. Mel, I'm sorry I didn't give you down. Okay, come on. Come on. Yeah, you're chopped over. Come on. I am sorry. I did not have that down. That's a first, Mel. Okay. All right, now you get to sit there.
I get to sit here.
Yes, you do.
Thanks
And
so
I'll
much.
even let you speak first.
You're gonna let me speak first.
Yes.
But
I
this
am
isn't
sorry.
going out other than, this is only
No,
going to the
this is
TV.
only going
Yeah.
to the TV. So everybody has to project their voices.
I think I can do that.
Okay. I am sorry.
Yeah. Dr. Sylvia, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, sir.
Now, that was one of the weirder introductions I've ever had. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mel Lazarus, and yes, I'm candidate for school committee. And I want to thank the OPL for giving me the opportunity to speak with you and to the listening audience and give you a little of my background and why I want to accept this responsibility. I have been a teacher in the Wareham school system for the past 17 years. And I retired last June, and I highly recommend retirement.
Me too.
In any case, educationally, I have a bachelor's degree from Boston University. I have a law degree from Suffolk University. I have a certificate of advanced graduate studies known among us educators as a CAGS from Fitchburg, and that qualifies me as an administrator up through principal in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. For the last 3 years at the high school, I was one of the 4 deans, having been lucky enough to graduate with my class, the class of 2013. While I was at the high school, I mentored, I believe, 6 new teachers, and I was responsible for 3 student teachers. I also was chair of negotiations for the Wareham Education Association for Unit A, which is the teaching staff. So I have more than an intimate relationship and knowledge of the budget. So, that being said, why do I want to run for school committee? I have been told that I have degrees of dementia for this. And I know it may sound a little corny or hokey, but I spent some of the happiest days of my working life at Wareham High School. And I want to give something back to this community. My wife and I have been full-time residents here since 2001. My parents, full-time residents here since 1974. And I remember the first time being in Wareham, my parents rented a house in 1951. I absolutely love this town. I love living in this town. I think that this town has the kinds of things that if you live here, you love it. And if you don't, go somewhere else. This is a terrific community. We also have a terrific school system. We have a school system that is on par with anything else in the state. Would more money help us make it a better school system? Absolutely. Are we going to get a lot more money in the very near future? No. So we have to use the resources we have. And the resources that we have is our staff of teachers, our staff of paraprofessionals, our staff of cafeteria workers, our staff of bus drivers, our staff of custodians. These are the people that make this school system a great school system. Now, does it have problems? Absolutely. And the challenge is to solve the problems. The challenge is to change the middle school from a level 3 school to a level 1 school. The high school, by the way, is a level 1 school. We have tremendous success with the high school students. And if it can be done in that building, it can be done in any building.
2 minutes.
And that's the challenge.
2 minutes.
I'm sorry?
2 minutes.
No problem. The other thing that I see as a challenge is we need to keep our students here. We need to keep our students from choosing another school system and accepting that and using the term, well, it's just Wareham. It's not just Wareham. So these are the challenges that I see. There are some challenges, these challenges can be accepted and overcome. And that's what I would like to do, and that's why I'm running for school committee. So thank you again to the OPL for allowing me to get up here and say my piece. And even though it is April Fool's Day on Tuesday, please don't forget to vote. Thank you.
All right, if you would hold hold your applause in between the candidates until they're both finished. Dr. Sylvia, please.
Good evening. That's a tough act to follow, I know. I want to thank Nan Millen, Onset Protective League, for inviting us again, and I want to thank you folks for coming out, because community involvement is listening to the issues, listening to the candidates, and making an informed decision. Unfortunately, you don't have much of a choice this year, but I will try to do my best. And you might ask yourself why someone that's 70 years old wants to continue to be on the school committee. You know, maybe I should be down in Florida on the beach instead of worrying about where the next dollar is going to come from to support our school system. Well, for those of you that don't know me, I spent 31 happy years as a teacher in Wareham Public Schools. I left Wareham Public Schools to become an administrator and eventually principal at Sandwich High School. When I retired from Sandwich High School, I want to echo what my colleague said. I wanted to give something back because, to be quite honest with you, I have a passion for Wareham Public Schools. I have always had a passion for Wareham Public Schools. And I can absolutely testify to the fact that despite our underfunding, we still turn out an excellent product. We have got programs that some of the schools in the surrounding area that, quote, have the reputation of being a better school do not have. We have advanced placement programs. We have after-school programs. We have instructional leaders at the elementary level. We are doing some very, very innovative work in terms of curriculum in this district. And so that's probably why I decided to run for another term, because I want to be part of the solution. And to be part of the solution, I have to, you know, sometimes stress a point, but always be on the side of the kids. That's my passion. My passion is to provide the best possible teaching and learning opportunities for our kids. I think I have the background to do that. I'm not going to go into all my degrees, but I've got a lot of them. But I want, and I just want to use them in a positive way and give back to the community and continue to work to make Wareham Public Schools a source of pride to the entire community. You know, ladies and gentlemen, we're all property owners, and the best thing that we can do to increase the value of our property is to provide a quality education to our young people. That is the best protection for your property, and to be proud of your school system. And you know, and despite tremendous budget cuts that we've had to endure, tremendous staff cuts, cuts in administration, cuts in programs, unfortunately, we still are able to point with pride to the things that we're producing and the quality programs that we're producing in Wareham Public Schools. I think all of you sitting in front of me right here can be very, very proud of Wareham Public Schools and our wonderful, wonderful students that we have there. So I'm not going to talk forever, but I do want to tell you that I am committed. I'm committed to you, the citizens, but more importantly, I'm committed to those kids, because those kids need a voice. So I ask for your support. I ask for your continued support, and be proud of your school system. But I'm going to say this flat out. We are in a crisis in this town, and we can't shy away from it. We can't put our head in the sand. We've got to face it. We have got a revenue problem in this town that has to be solved. And everyone has got to recognize that, get in the canoe, and stop paddling in the same direction. And I'll be willing to do my share to convince folks that we need to provide for our younger citizens, our junior citizens, because they should not be ripped off even though they don't have a vote. So again, thank you for coming. I appreciate it, and it's been my pleasure serving the citizens and the children of Wareham Public Schools. Thank you.
Okay, questions? Done.
I have one question for Dr. Sylvia.
No. The way, the format is, the question is asked of the office, and both candidates have the right to answer.
Okay.
Shoot, Donna.
Absolutely. How proud are you, particularly Mr. Sullivan, of being
Done.
the father of DECA of your Decker students and how they performed in the state recently. I think you should,
Uh,
I think
I'll
both
answer
should,
that, too.
both of
Okay,
them
all right,
can
no
expand on it, both of them.
Okay.
Because Mel knows too. How proud are you of what you guys have done?
Well, I'm very proud, but I mean, I started the program in 1974, but that's ancient history. You know, that program has flourished to the point that's completely surpassed any expectation I ever had. And fortunately, for me, it's still in the family. So I think that it's a wonderful program, but here's the most important thing. Why does that program flourish in Wareham? It flourishes in Wareham because of the nature of Wareham High School. That's a community school. That's a family school. I have never seen more giving children and family-oriented children in a school like I see at Wareham High School. For those of you that don't know, I work for the University of Massachusetts, and I'm in the inner city instructing and supervising young practitioners, student teachers. So I'm in the Boston Arts Academy, I'm at Fenway High School, I'm in Charlestown High School, I'm in the Dorchester Academy. And so I'm in schools all the time, and I've yet to see a school that's as nurturing, that's as caring, both the faculty and the students. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's flourished. It's flourished because it exists in Wareham High School. So, and the other thing is, look at this. Here's another point of pride. What other community that supposedly is providing quality education has a program that can even compare with that program? And the answer is none. Thank you for asking the question.
No?
Well, I think that I'd like to approach this from a slightly different angle in that I have not been personally involved in the DECA program. On the other hand, it is extremely gratifying to see our students go statewide, regionally, statewide, and nationally, and come back with medals and trophies. That is a testament to the fact that our students are better than other students in some of the showcase schools, regionally, statewide, and nationally. That's a testament to these students.
And their parents.
Whether, thank you for just jumping in there.
Sorry.
Stepping on my tongue, if you will.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. Now I've completely lost my train
I'm
of thought.
sorry. I'm really sorry.
So, in answer to your question, I think that this is an area that the entire community should be proud of. We should be proud of these students. And we should be proud of the staff that's directing these students down this path. There's nothing else you can say other than we need more of these programs, and we need more of our students to shine, and they will.
Thank you
Yes.
for asking the question.
Sir?
Do you see a problem in potential loss of the Wareham Public Library as an extracurricular source of education for Wareham students?
Mel, would you answer first, please?
Sure. Yeah, I do see a problem. I think that the library provides services for our students that they cannot get right now in in their schools other than the high school. Because of many years of budget cuts, we've lost library services in the middle schools and in the elementary schools. So yes, I think that losing library services is a problem for our students because it gives them a place to go to do research and to use computers after school. No question about it.
Dr. Sophy?
Through budget cuts, we've really only got one functioning library in the system, and that's at the high school. We really don't have a functioning library at the middle school or the elementary schools. So to close our public library is an incredible void for our junior citizens. So absolutely, it's a void. I hate the thought of my community that I love not having a library. I hate the thought of it. But unfortunately, we are in a crisis situation, just an absolute crisis situation.
Yes.
I, for one, have never questioned the academics in the Wareham school system. I have had a chance of meeting several teachers, and I think they're excellent. Not only excellent people, but excellent educators. But what bothers me, which really is nationwide, but I think right now it does the most harm for our school system right now, is the lack thereof of rules, regulations, regimentation, which I think kids desperately need, even though they'll fight it and say they don't like it. Do we have a chance, without having legal battles, of putting some set of regimentation to make those that disrupt the rest of the students, become better students and fit the road that's necessary to succeed? Because we know that we have good students that come out of the system, excellent, and they do quite well. It's those that are affected easily by people that have no rules and live by no regimentation.
Okay. Dr. Sylvia, I believe you're first.
I understand your question. It's a big concern for a lot of people. And as a matter of fact, that's probably number one reason why we're losing kids to other districts. I personally don't think we're losing kids to other districts because of academics, because I think we can stack up academically with any school in the area. But unfortunately, we've got a perception or a reputation of having a core of young people that are less than accommodating or less than behave in less than an appropriate way. However, I think that is perception. I really do, because we get a report at the school committee on suspensions, on detentions, and all on discipline referrals. And for a school of our size, both elementary, middle school, and high school, our referrals are way down. At the high school, they instituted the dean system, which I think is the best thing they ever did, because now you have one individual that is solely responsible for one grade. So all of the discipline issues is handled by that one individual, and all of the students in that grade know that individual. I thought the dean situation, putting in the deans at the high school was tremendous in terms of maintaining order. And I'm the first one to say, if you don't have order in a school, you don't have education. And I can't say that based on my observations, both at the elementary level, the middle level, and high school level. You know, do we have an element of kids that are trying? Absolutely. It is a public school. But I think that we have a group of core professionals, both administratively and in the teaching ranks, that are really gifted in dealing with these issues and approaching these issues in a timely manner. I will say, however, not having a resource officer doesn't help the cause.
For the past 3 years, I was one of those deans at the high school. And it allowed students to have another person to speak to. And because we were dealing with a limited number of students, it gave us the ability to work with some of the students that were giving us difficulties. Our referrals were down. The number of students who were removed from classes went down. Our suspensions went down. That system in the high school works. In terms of the middle schools and the elementary schools, they've got different kinds of problems. I think at the middle school, we have an issue that goes back to the stability of the administration of the school. We've had a number of principals in and out of that school in the last few years, and now it's time to find somebody that's going to stabilize that situation. Students need to see that kind of stability. They need to know that there is a person in charge who has their best interest at heart. It's working at the high school, absolutely working at the high school. And I agree completely with Dr. Sylvia. We must find a way to bring back a resource officer for our system. Not just for disciplinary action, but for the fact that that resource officer becomes one of us in terms of the student body. So, yes, we do have that core group of students that no matter what you do, we're going to have a problem with it. I think that we're dealing with it on a very high level.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Jack?
I'd just like to ask a question on the busing. I did see that it was voted to continue busing.
Not yet, Jack.
It wasn't voted on? Well, that's one of the questions I want to ask. What is your feeling, both of your feelings, on that particular situation?
Mel, I believe you're first, or did you answer first the last time?
No,
Doesn't matter.
whatever you want.
Okay,
I,
rock, paper, scissors.
no, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Just as long as you can continue without being interrupted by the...
I know, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
It's okay, Don.
Old age, senile.
I don't believe for 1 second that we should abrogate our responsibility to get our students to school, period. We absolutely must do it. We have a huge geography to deal with. And I'm going to tell you what Dr. Sylvia said at a school committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. I want you to picture little Billy, who lives in Indian Mound, who wants to go to school and wants to go to the high school and has no transportation. And we're going to ask that young man to walk down Route 6 at 6 o'clock in the morning with snow on the ground, no sidewalks, and hope to hell he doesn't get hit by a car. We have an absolute 100% responsibility to get those students to school. And if we don't do it, we will guaranteed, you will see our 95% attendance rate at the high school drop 20 points. So I don't see this as a discussion. I see this as an absolute necessity.
Dr. Sylvia?
You know, thank you for asking the question, Jack, but my position on it has been very, very clear, and I will answer your question. But I think that an even bigger question, a more overarching question, is the distastefulness of the conversation for me. That we are in such bad financial situation in this town, and we are in such dire financial problems in this town, that we even have to entertain that conversation as a possible option. To me, that's a bigger problem, that we even have to consider that as a budget-cutting option. And I just ditto what Mr. Lazarus said. You can't, I mean, the option is laying off teachers, believe it or not. That's the option. We have no other place to go. So if we're gonna bust the high school kids, we've got 5 teachers gonna get laid off. And to be quite honest with you, we need those teachers. We need those teachers for a variety of reasons. But you know what? I have to compromise, and I have to say, what is the bigger good? And the bigger good is making sure Johnny doesn't get hit by a car on 6 and 28.
Okay,
I have one more question, if you don't mind.
absolutely. Go ahead, Jack.
I'm just curious about sports. Do you have the numbers on what it actually costs the student to play sports?
I don't have the number off the top of my head, but if they play 3 sports, I think it, and there's a sliding scale.
Excuse me, but does it cost money to play in all sports?
Yes, it's a user fee. And I hate user fees, Jack. Hate them. Again, what do? Do we want to maintain our athletic program? That's on the chopping block too. Everything's on the chopping block. And, because how much can we raise the fees? Seriously. How much can we raise the fees? How much can we ask these parents to pay to have their kids experience the full experience of going to Wareham Public Schools? A positive experience. And you know as well as I do, because you played sports, it's a positive experience. So, again, the mere fact that we even have to have those conversations is very distasteful to me. That's why I'm running again. I want to be part of the solution, and I want to work towards providing a better Wareham. Not just in the school department, across the board, a better Wareham for everybody.
Mel?
I agree with Dr. Sylvia that user fees for students at high school level is a crime. We shouldn't have to do it. What's the alternative? The alternative is we don't have that sport. And at what point are we going to say that athletics aren't part of high school education? Well, they are. They are on a number of levels. And whether or not you agree with the way a coach coaches, whether or not you like the record that a particular team has, totally immaterial. Totally irrelevant. What's relevant is that we're teaching these students another facet of life. And I agree with Dr. Sylvia. The whole concept of user fees is intolerable. But again, we talk about compromise. Is it better to have the user fees and have the athletics, or not have the user fees and not have football and basketball, et cetera?
Okay?
Keep going, Jack.
Jack's on the roll.
I'm just curious. You have the 2 schools. You have the one in West Wareham, it's the academy.
West Wareham Academy,
And the one in the old town barn area. in the-
Cooperative Junior Senior High School.
I just, if both of you can explain how things are going in that school, and how do you feel it's running, and the students are progressing in that?
All right, Mel, you would be
Oh, I'm gonna go first. I was fortunate enough to be one of the 4 people that sat on the original grant program and committee for the cooperative school. And I am very happy with what's going on over there. We've taken students who are at-risk students, and these students are graduating and graduating with their class. They're passing MCAS. And as an aside to that, we're removing those students from an environment that was a problem for them and a problem for staff members. They're in small group situations. They have a work component of their school at the cooperative school. And I think that that program is working very well. West Academy services another type of student. West Academy services a student of high need. And that program is working well. And we're bringing in students from other districts on school choice who are paying an awful lot of the bill at West Academy. Both of these programs are working. Both of these programs are working very, very well. And I cannot concede that we would want to change the way those programs are working.
Okay, Dr. Sylvia?
I'll just talk one at a time. Thank you for asking the question. This is a very, very important question. I just happened to be on the board of the school committee when we discussed, debated West Academy. And to be quite honest with you, I was the last guy to jump on board. I wasn't sold that it was going to be self-sustaining. And I said to myself, I said, the last thing we need now is another money pit in the Wareham School Department. So it was explained and so forth and so on, and we made a deal. And it was kind of to pacify me because I can be a pain in the neck sometimes on the committee. And I said, if it doesn't pay for itself, this thing is going south because we can't afford to have something that's just going to drain whatever limited resources that we have. The basic philosophy of West Academy was, okay, to bring back those outside placements. Now, for anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about, special education costs are absolutely through the roof. And you can pay as much as $100,000 for one placement if you've got to place a student outside the district. So West Academy was an attempt to have a facility within the district for emotionally disturbed students, students that are having problems emotionally, that hopefully to assimilate them back into their regular education setting, but until then, to have a therapeutic setting, a small setting, away from the mainstream in which these students can succeed. Not only is West Wareham self-sustaining, it's making money because we're bringing in choice students, students from other districts that have similar problems that are going to West Academy. So I have to be honest with you, I was wrong because I didn't think it was going to work, but it has worked, and it's worked very, very well. That is a very wholesome setting for those kids to learn in, and it's a small setting, and it's dovetailed with the therapeutic and psychological services that they need to succeed. The cooperative junior, senior high school, I've been in favor from the get-go. We have the honor to be at the graduation ceremony of those kids graduating from the cooperative school, cooperative high school. It's an amazing story. Every single one of those kids have a story, a personal story of hardship. And every one of those kids rose above it. And they rose above it because, again, we provided them with an outlet that they could flourish in. And that is what I mean about a giving community. And the Wareham Public Schools, in a lot of ways, have been such a leader in terms of innovation that people don't realize that. And I'm so tired of hearing that it's better down the road. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, it's not better down the road. It's really good right here. Despite our budget problems, we are still turning out a good product.
Dr. Sylvia, Mel has asked to speak
May I-
again, and then you can.
Can I have 1 minute of your time?
No.
Oh, thank you.
You can have all the time you
Jack,
want.
I just want to tell you from personal experience, 2 students that I dealt with on a regular basis went from the high school to West Academy. Both of those students graduated with their class. Both of those students, one came back for his senior year, and it was like somebody had turned on a light switch with this young man. The change in his attitude and the change in his demeanor. The other students stayed at West. They both graduated with their class. They both passed MCAS. And that's a testament to what's going on in that building.
Dr. Sylvia, do you want to add anything
No,
else?
I'm all set. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Jack.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Marianne, sorry I left you.
Sorry.
That's actually a first.
Yep.
Okay, now we have the contest for the assessors. I am not mentioning any names because if I forget somebody else, that's not a good thing. I will say that Mr. McCahill was unable to attend tonight, and so Steve, come on up and you can read his statement. What we allow, Priscilla, come on, Jim? What we allow is when a candidate is unable to attend, we allow someone to make a statement for them. As I said earlier, they may not answer questions, but they can read a statement. Well, you need to be by the microphone. Go ahead, you two in the center.
Okay.
If you want to stand in front and just turn the
I'll
microphone
just wait till
around.
Jimmy comes up.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, exactly. You got it.
Okay. Right there by that.
Okay. Yeah, so friend Mike, his name's James Mike McCahill, but we call him Mike. I was unable to attend tonight, so I'd just like to give a little brief history on Mike so you know who he is and what he's running for in the office. Mike is a certified general real estate appraiser. He's licensed to appraise residential, commercial, and industrial properties in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Mike has been the owner of MRA Appraisals for over 20 years in Buzzards Bay. He's been an engineer and in a construction company business for over 30 years. His education is a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, Business Administration, and Marketing. Mike is certified with the Department of Revenue to assess all properties here in the town, and that his goal to be reelected is to make sure that all the assessments are fair and equitable.
Thank you. Okay, so, Jim, if you would start. If you've noticed, what I'm allowing tonight, because we do have so few contested races, I'm kind of giving some latitude as to the time. I'm not holding everybody's answers to 2 minutes, and you have between 5 and 7 minutes to introduce yourself.
Wow, thank you.
You don't have to take it all if you don't want. Do try and project your voice though, Jim.
Okay. My name is Jim Gibberti, and I'm running for one of the seats on the Assessors Department. I'm a resident of the town. I've been born and brought up here. Went to Wareham Public Schools.
You need to be louder.
Oh, that may not happen.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. We'll try. Graduated from Wareham High School, degree from Cornell. I've been on the Prudential Committee here in town, Finance Committee, Capital Planning Committee, in the Assessors Department is an area that I would like to get involved with, primarily from my own personal standpoint, to be sure that the assessments that are levied on the property owners are fair and equitable. I mean, for those of you that have been around, I went through the debacle of the 80s when we had to have the state come in and straighten everything out. And I certainly never want to have to go through that again. I'm trying. I do have a problem trying to project. It just doesn't come out. I had a little issue there. Other than that, I'd like very much to be on the board. I think I can lend my time and expertise to whatever comes up. Hopefully, as they say, to watch the assessing, to make sure we don't get into any more situations. Although the assessors are limited, as you all know, I'm sure. We're required by state law to do certain things or not do certain things. Beyond that, our hands get a little bit tied. That's really about all I've got to offer right now.
Okay, thank you. Priscilla?
I'm Priscilla Porter, and I'm running for assessor. like Jim. I don't have a college degree. All I can tell you is that I have been to Bentley, Boston College, Wentworth, Northeastern, Roger Williams. I worked in the construction industry for 43 years, and I took courses relating to my employment, and accounting, computers, and construction, which I was very interested in. I'm retired, a new retired person, so I'm just learning what it's like not to have to get up early in the morning. And it's a novelty. I thought it was time, since I do have a lot more time now, that running for assessor would be a good place for me. I have been on the Finance Committee. I was on the Personnel Board. I was on the Master Plan Committee, the group that actually got their master plan voted on at town meeting and accepted. I've been on the Board of Trustees, and I was a water commissioner for the Wareham Fire District for 2 terms, which was 6 years.
Can you raise your voice a little? So.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. As far as currently, I'm involved with the Friends of the Wareham Free Library. I am their president at this moment. A lot of my experience in town and meeting people in Wareham has been through my interest in the library. But I do have a very strong accounting background. And so I'm really, really good with numbers. And I would certainly, part of, want the assessments issued on property values in the community to be fair. And that would be part of your position as an assessor. Also, getting the, excuse me, setting the tax rate also in a timely manner is important. And like Jim, I was here when we had problems years ago in the assessor's office, and I would certainly not want to see the state come into the Wareham community in any office at all. I mean, we have our problems, but I believe very strongly that we can work through those problems and be better for it. Because Wareham is a great place. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
Okay. All right. So, do we have any questions for the Office of Assessor? Yes, thank you.
You said we do have problems. What problems do we have now?
Financial.
Ah, yes. That's not an assessing problem.
No, it's not.
Yes, Bob.
A fast question. Financial, we all know there's a financial problem. Values of properties. If we need more revenue in this town, do you feel that the properties that are being used in the assessment process are fairly valued to reflect what we need for increased revenues to deal with the financial picture of the town? Or could there be more done? I know we can only go up 2.5%, but I'm looking at the assessment practices. It seems to me that we have property in this town, a lot of that we should have more value in our properties to help our tax rate.
Okay, Priscilla, you'd be first.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Bob. Love you dearly.
Who's your buddy?
I know. Having never been an assessor and a new person, I would like to believe, I do understand that periodically they go through a reassessing process. I'm not sure how frequent that would be, but I would like to think that if property hasn't been valued correctly in those reassessments, that would be picked up. Beyond that, not having actually worked in the office, I don't know the answer.
Okay, Jim?
I can't really add a heck of a lot to that. Without going through, not necessarily total reval, but the every 3-year adjustment that we go through. You really have to look at the individual properties and see what we've got, what our basis is. The assessing department is limited as to what they can do. They can look at. Okay, for those of you that are having trouble hearing me, I had an incident. My vocal cords are such that I can only project so much, and I can't get it any louder without a bullhorn or something.
Whisper to me and I'll say it.
Okay, I can whisper to her.
Again, I apologize, there are no external microphones this evening. The fellow for the OPL that normally takes care of that had a death in the family, and so he was unable to be here with the equipment tonight. But, all right, do we have any other questions for the Office of Assessor? No? All right, then, thank you both very much.
Thank you for saying you did a great job.
Okay, this is our final race for tonight, is the Selectmen's race. And there are 2 positions open and 3 candidates. I will let them introduce themselves. Michael, you may start.
Thank you. I'm Michael Freitz, and I'm a candidate for Selectman here in Wareham. I'd like to thank the Onset Protective League for hosting this tonight, and particularly Ms. Miller. I've been coming, I'm educated in Weymouth, Mass, and I have some letters after my name, but I don't think that's the important thing here. I've been coming down here since the 60s, and my aunt bought the house actually in the 50s, my Aunt Marie. I'll touch upon this really briefly. She bought it for $3,700, and I kind of wish that was the assessed rate these days, but it's been like a family cottage, and now I'm living here year-round. Somebody asked me recently why I'd consider running for selectman, and I said there's only 2 good reasons why anybody would run for any town office, and one of them is they're completely insane, and number 2 would be they really have a love for their community, because nobody runs for any office. I'm also running for office because I don't like to see any office uncontested. Anyway, I retired in 2002 on a disability. I was the assistant manager of quality control for the first high-speed rail system in the country. My background is in transportation. I've worked in the railroad industry. I was the one of the first managers in our high-speed rail system. Did a lot of research in other countries on in rail transportation and bringing high-speed rail into this country. My experience is with budgets in excess of $500 million. I work directly with very large budgets. I worked with 26 different collective bargaining agreements, and Wareham has 6 or 7. I was surprised at that. I worked on labor relation issues with each one of these directly in resolutions. I'm a staff officer in the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary, and we serve Onset, Marion area. We volunteer and we support the Coast Guard in all its missions. I'm a member of the Wareham YMCA, and I'm there every morning. As hard as it is sometimes for me to walk, if you want to come and talk to me, I'm always accessible, and you just got to get on a treadmill next to me. 4 miles a day. Avid sailor, I'm a member of the American Sailing Association, member of Wareham Redmond, Knights of Columbus. Let's see. My career also, took some shortcomings because I had severe alcohol and drug addictions, and I've recovered from that, and I've put my life back together, and I work with a lot of people in town that are having problems, and it helps me. Now, as far as issues with the town, I think that mismanagement has played a role in the past. I believe, there's ways to save. I mean, health insurance is killing us. I've yet to understand the whole water district thing. I don't, I'm working on that. Yeah, so that's something I really am interested in learning. I think there's been some bad business decisions in the past, specifically with our chief of police and that sort of thing. You don't put out contracts, pay tons of money, and then, you decide you don't like the way somebody parts their hair and terminate them and cost the town 3 or 4 years to pay off contracts. I mean, it's ridiculous. I believe that the role of the Board of Selectmen is to vote on issues and not to, put themselves on a, it's not about trying to run different departments. It's working with them and for the betterment of all. But no, we don't. We shouldn't be making contracts, and we shouldn't be hiring people to boost their pension through the roof. When they only want to show up a few days a week, that sort of thing. I believe in a strong chief, and I believe, as far as public safety goes, I believe we should, take from within whenever possible, and that's we take from our own. That's how it works with me. My dream project for Wareham, we all have our dream projects, and mine would be, a public safety building and try to consolidate all services under one roof. A green building, something that's effective that we could actually build with grant money from Homeland Security grants, and I've got a lot of experience there. Revenue, it's great if you want to generate new revenue, but we have systemic problems that they come from, much bigger town than Wareham. It starts way at the top. We have systemic problems that, a lot of people aren't working. So regardless of how much revenue or increases you want to make or whatever, if people can't pay it, you can raise it all you want. There's not everybody's going to be a physicist or a whatever. There's working class, and they're not working, and all we is anyway. That's a whole separate issue. But consolidation is what it comes down to as far as my views on saving the town money. I'm a very humble person. I live here in Pinehurst with my 94-year-old aunt, and I had another aunt who was passed away a few years ago, and I've been taking care of them. That's my full-time job, and that's really something. I'll close by saying, my Aunt Marie, who bought the house originally in Pinehurst here, she was 18 years old, and my mother was 6 years old when my grandmother died of cancer way back. And my grandfather didn't quite get the concept of bringing the paycheck home, and Marie was the highest-ranking woman official in the King administration, and she became she never married. She went to every bingo game in town here. She collected the pension in 1979 when she retired until 2 years ago. She got the pension more years than she worked. God bless her, but she's been an inspiration to me, to give back, and I believe my experience, especially dealing with large budgets, collective bargaining agreements, we're all looking at things we want to take back, and it's not a good idea, taking things like Quinn Bill, for instance. It's an incentive for people to advance their education, and you take things away like that, and we lose police officers who will do lateral transfers to other towns, and then those aren't very wise ways to save money.
1 minute.
1 minute. I'm just going to shut up right now. I'm a candidate for selectman. My name is Michael Freitz, and I have all the time in the world to listen to people. Well, not all the time. I tell you, I'm going to have a 94-year-old that's going to be very mad because it's 8:59. I'm going to be quiet at that.
Okay, Peter.
Good evening. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name's Peter Teitelbaum. I've been serving on the Board of Selectmen for 2 years. I'd like to thank first the Honors and Protective League for sponsoring this Candidates Night once again, and also the gentleman here from WCTV who are bringing it to the people at home. I'm not going to discuss my background all that much. If you followed politics in Wareham and you don't know who I am by now, I hope you wake up from your coma soon. Basically, just briefly, my education. I'm the only current member of the Board of Selectmen who ever attended the Wareham Public Schools. I was there 1 through 8. Graduated from Tabor Academy in 1977. Attended Colby College in Waterville, Maine. I graduated from Bridgewater State University now. It was a college when I went to it then, with a degree in history and a degree in English. I went to law school, graduated in 1998, took the bar in 1998, was admitted to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts courts in December of 1998, the Federal District of Boston, and the U.S. First District Court of Appeals in 1999. I'm a practicing attorney, solo practitioner. I have my own business. If you drive past my house at 2 o'clock in the morning and you see my lights on, that's when I'm doing my work. My days are substantially consumed with town business. As chairman in particular this year, there have been a lot of challenging demands on my time. What I'd like to talk about first is what's been going on in the past 2 years since I've been on the board, and the reason I ran in the first place 2 years ago. One of the biggest reasons was what I saw was a lack of civility in our politics. I thought that we had competing groups in town whose goals seemed to be for one to outshout the other. I didn't think that that was a way for people to do business. I didn't think that targeting town employees because you weren't the one who hired them, or perhaps you had a friend who wanted that person's job, was a fair way to do business. I saw that leading to endless lawsuits. I saw that leading to endless lawsuits that we would lose. Now you can tell me that insurance would pay the judgments off, but what was harmed almost irreparably at the time was our reputation. It made it difficult for us to attract qualified candidates. So that's why I ran in the first place, with civility, to not attack town workers, to create an environment where people could come to work, do their jobs, feel comfortable, and go home. I'm happy to report that I think on the Board of Selectmen anyway, in the past 2 years, we've substantially done that. We've created a fairly civil environment. We've worked with the town employees without demonizing them. We've been able to arrive at collective bargaining agreements, and I was interested to hear Mr. Freight's on that, with all except 2 current unions. We are current through the past fiscal year, which in municipal politics is not a bad thing, trust me. Our town workers were generous to us, you might say, by agreeing to zero raises for 2 consecutive years. We're appreciative of that fact. We know it's going to be tough going forward to continue to maintain the current level of town services. We face challenges there. We know our budget doesn't make anybody happy. I could cry when I look at the library budget, whittled down to $125,000, having been a patron of the Wareham Free Library since I was 3 years old. I get upset when I look at what we're doing with the Council on Aging, budget-wise. I don't think our elderly are disposable. I think we need to take care of our elderly. I think we have an obligation, a moral one and a financial one, to try to provide programs for people in their latter years so that they can remain engaged in the community, so that they can come out and be with their friends and have a social life and avoid isolation and avoid loneliness. I'm very disappointed that we are at the end of our fiscal rope and that we have to do these things. Unfortunately, people need to understand that we are an inferior government. And by that, I mean we have a federal government that requires us to do certain things. We have a state government that requires us to do even more things. And so when people come up to me and say, why are you taking from the library? Why don't you do away with the conservation department? Why don't you do away with this, that, or the other thing? The response is, we have to have a conservation agent. We have to uphold the Wetlands Protection Act. We have to review site plans. We have to look at stormwater management. We have to do all of these things. And we have a volunteer board, of course, in the Conservation Commission that votes to allow permits, to require certain things be done, but they, in turn, have to rely upon a hired expert to guide them. So these positions that we have, many of them, we are essentially required to have. We can't whittle them down. We can't do away with them. It's just not possible. So when it comes to budgeting, unfortunately, we're not in a position to fund the same things that have been funded. I'm proud to say that this board stands behind our town administrator, who is as frugal as it gets. Some would say cheap. I actually accused him of that today in his office when I wanted something, and he was giving me a hard time about it. But what I will say to you is that I do believe the time has come to seriously consider augmenting what we take in. To that end, the Board of Selectmen has voted to place on the town meeting warrant a placeholder article that would be for an override. We don't have all of the numbers in yet from our town administrator or our school superintendent, who are the drivers, who, as the people who will be tasked with spending the money, it only makes sense for them to develop the plan to allocate the monies. We're waiting for that. Next week you will hear more about this. There's a joint meeting for next Thursday night, at which we are very hopeful that they will present a plan that we can look at. We can see where the money goes. We will discuss it. If the plan makes sense, I personally will support it. So I'll come right out now and say that I will support an override plan for the town of Wareham that makes sense. By makes sense, I mean it has to do more than Band-Aid our finances for the next year or two. What we've asked for and what we hope to receive is a plan that will cover us for the next 5 years. You can't really project out more than that in municipal finance. It's just not possible. We're hopeful that in the interim we'll see changes to state aid formulas like Chapter 70 for the schools, where we're not punished so much for having expensive real estate in the form of some of the cottages and the mansions, frankly, that dot our coastline. We're hopeful that we can rearrange our cherry sheets. We're hopeful that we can support our schools so that we're not losing students to other school districts and can keep some of that money that follows the student out of town along with the school choice. So there's a lot of work to be done. 2 years, frankly, wasn't enough to do it. I would say that in the past 2 years, I think our greatest accomplishment as a Board of Selectmen has been to hire a town administrator who was honest, who was forthright, who was trustworthy, who does not go back on his word, and frankly, on behalf of the taxpayers, is frugal. He has allowed us, in some measure, to retain even more services than I would suspect many other people would have in the same position. So as ugly as this budget looks, as devastating as the cuts are to certain departments, I would suggest that it would be even worse if we didn't have him. So in closing, I would ask you to stay the course. With all due respect to Mr. Freight's candidacy, I think you need to stick with experience. You've got people in there who are part of a team. We cooperate fairly well on the board. We cooperate especially well with the other boards, including the school committee and the finance committee. And so I would ask for your vote for re-election and also for Selectman Whiteside. Thank you.
You went over your time
By what?
by a minute.
That's why I didn't look at you.
I knew that.
Why do you think I ignore judges? I just don't look over there when I'm rattling on.
Ignoring's not the answer.
I'm Judith Whiteside. I'm a candidate for re-election for selectman. If you can't hear me, I don't believe it. As a 10th grade teacher, for 12 years in the Wareham school system, I had to reach everyone in the room, including those of you who are trying to hide from me way in the back. Hi there, it doesn't work. I see you. I have retired from the Wareham public school systems where I worked for 12 years, mostly as a 10th grade teacher. And when I go around town now, all these young ladies and young men come up to me and go, Mrs. Whiteside, Mrs. Whiteside, and they give me great big hugs, and I don't recognize them. I don't recognize them because they grew up. You know, their faces change, but it's really nice to have people that I was very strict with say hi. For those of you who don't know me, 30 years ago, I was a selectman, and my name was Judith Montminy. I have 2 grown children. My daughter is a social worker at Walter Reed Army Hospital in Baltimore, and she works in the Wounded Warrior program. I said to her, "How can you stand that?" And she said to me, "You taught high school. What are you talking about?" My son works as a drugs representative for a specialty pharmacy also in DC. Prior to teaching, I was a banker for 27 years, 4 of those years in pension portfolio in Boston, and 23 of those years in commercial banking in New Bedford, one of the poorest towns in the Commonwealth, and at one point, and 2 points during its history, one of the richest cities in the United States. I have several degrees, including the same one that Mr. Lazarus has, the CAGS, which is sort of I could be a principal if I wanted to be. So why do I want to be a selectman again? Because I thought when I ran for the 1-year unexpired term that I might be a selectman for a year and then go into the slot that was coming up, or the one slot that I knew was coming up, the 2 slots that actually came up on the school committee. I love being a selectman. I know so many people from 30 years ago. I know so many people from my 12 years of experience in the school. I can go nowhere in this town without having somebody say, "Hey, Jude, how are you?" Or, "Hi, Mrs. Whiteside." I'm the teacher of several of your grandchildren, I believe, and I loved them. I miss teaching. I miss the interaction with the kids. And for those of you who knew me in the classroom, tough as nails, right? High expectations. When I was a selectman years ago, I was also a sewer commissioner. I was also on the Recreation Commission. I was a cemetery commissioner. I did, I think, 8 years on the Finance Committee, including being chairman of the Finance Committee. That was before we had, personal computers. We had a typewriter that went bing when you hit the carriage return, so that all of the things that you get now at town meeting, we typed those things. We were there until 11 o'clock, 5 nights a week. I'm the past president of Wareham Youth Soccer, and believe it or not, I was a FIFA referee. I could run with 18-year-old boys. Not today, no way, but it was great. I'm also the current treasurer of the Wareham Gateman Baseball Inc., and I've been involved with that for more than 25 years. Most important issue facing Wareham today is the issue of our revenue not meeting our expenses.
2 minutes.
2-minute warning. We've talked about that ad nauseum at selectmen meetings. We've talked about it here. Several of you have talked about it. And it's not a threat, it is a fact. We need to figure out how to fund the services that are required by law, and then the ones that are required by common decency. And those include the Council on Aging. They include the library. Neither one of those things is required by law. We have an $80 million capital budget facing us for the next 5 to 7 years. Those are roofs, buildings, equipment, trucks, plows that have not been taken care of in an ongoing budgetary manner. And those things are falling apart. I did teach in a room that leaked every time it rained. I had a wastebasket in front of me. It's true. I am hoping that I will continue as a selectman. I enjoy working with I call them the 4 boys, because all of them except one are younger than I am. And I think that we do work very well with each other, even though we don't always agree. I'm personally proud of the work that I have done to help the town adopt a social media policy, as well as a committee handbook, which I worked with the town clerk on, for all volunteers and elected officials. I think it's something that needed to be committed to writing, I'm going to be committed to. I worked on the sign bylaw with Mr. Slavin and others, and I am working with him and Mr. Teitelbaum on 2 other initiatives for the town. I'm an organized person, I'm retired, I'm not going anywhere, and I love this town, and I love the kids, and I am a senior citizen. Thank you.
All right. So, who has the first question?
Come on, we're not that good.
I've got one. Am I allowed to do that?
Sure, why not?
My question is, what do you feel that your greatest accomplishment since you've been in office is?
Okay,
I would like to know
That's a great
that.
question, Michael, thank you. All right.
But he has to
Judith,
answer it, too.
well, I know, he gets to answer it too, but he's not been in Selectman's office. Judith, you answer first.
Touche.
Greatest accomplishment?
Yes, ma'am.
I think the greatest accomplishment is actually having Derek Sullivan committed to a 3-year contract with the town. I believe strongly that he is the right person at the right time. He puts up with no baloney, and he has very good experience. So I would say that as a member of the committee that offered him a 3-year contract, I'm very, very pleased with that.
I too like Mr. Sullivan.
Peter?
Yeah, I have to echo Selectman Whiteside's remarks. I do think that is probably our paramount accomplishment. Again, I speak to not just his toughness, but also his honesty. If he, and cheap, as she said, if he does not have the answer, he will not try to snow you. He will tell you he doesn't have the answer. He will come back and provide one at a future date. He's been very responsive to the Board of Selectmen, but he doesn't roll over for us either. He is smart in that he protects his turf. Anybody in the Selectman's office can at various times perhaps get too interested in something, border on being meddlesome, and he has no problem telling us where to stick it when it comes to that. And having a town administrator who is willing to tell you, I'm not going to do that for you, or I don't have the money, who stands firm, is perhaps the best thing you can have in a town, because in that sense, you're getting the pure administration of the town by somebody who is trustworthy, honest, stern, who uses the resources that are available to him or her to get the best result. And for that reason, I'm proud that we managed to discover this young guy in our midst, came in untested, really. Nobody really knew much about him. Some people were suspicious because he was brought in by a prior town administrator who proved at the end to perhaps not be so popular. I'm proud that myself and the other members of the board at the time chose not to indict him because of his association or how he arrived, but rather sat back, watched him work, and became impressed with him. If you saw the candidates we interviewed in the September of 2012 who came, we had one with the best of the bunch had a serious procurement history. The worst of the bunch had slept with one of his employees. These people all wanted a lot more money than we ended up paying Mr. Sullivan, and they all came with serious baggage. So I'm glad that we did what we were supposed to do, and we hired the right guy for the job.
Thank you, Peter. Michael, I
I
don't
can't answer
see how
that.
you can answer that
I can't.
question. Okay, well,
That was wit.
all right. Donna?
Going forward, it appears that you guys have done a great job in town hall, but do you have any, what do you look at the police department, and how are we gonna fix those guys? Because those guys have been through a rough time, and they're good guys. They're that's gonna make those police officers wanna stay with us and, be happy again.
Okay, thank you. I'll start with you, but I'm going to limit you to 3 minutes,
Okay,
because otherwise you'll just go on for,
yeah,
you know, so,
like Fidel tonight.
3 minutes.
Well, we're currently involved in negotiating contracts with them. That's all I can say. These take place in executive session. We don't discuss that outside of executive session. I think, I'm going to back up and answer your question a little bit different way. I know that the chief we did bring in from outside, I know he was paid a large salary. I know there was a fair amount of controversy associated with him. I know that he was outstanding at procuring grants for equipment. Unfortunately, the grants for the personnel to be on that equipment were not so forthcoming. I think a lot of the resources may have been, at the time, not always used in the best fashion. One thing you should understand, and this is also to Mr. Sullivan's credit, we operate under civil service for the police chief position. As most of you certainly recall, when the chief went off with a claimed work-related injury at town meeting in May and did not come back, we were frankly in a bit of a pickle. The question is, how do you ease him on to the next thing he wants to do in life, but yet do not own somebody who cannot work until they're 65? And I'm not going to go into the specifics, but Mr. Sullivan was very artful in that regard. I think that in doing that, we may have increased some of the morale in the department. Going forward, there's going to be an assessment program, I believe, to analyze internal candidates for the next permanent chief's position. People will apply for that. A firm will come in. They will put these people through different paces, situations, and so forth, and make a recommendation to the town administrator and the board of selectmen as to who to hire. And once that process is done, I think there'll be some solidity at the top there, and I think the officers can feel comforted that at least they know who's going to be running things.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I don't think we need an outside firm to come in, and, personally, I feel that, a town is sort of like a company. We take from within. And if we have qualified people from within, that's who we use. And we don't go and, again, that they brought in this gentleman, Stanley, and there was a lot of controversy, specifically a situation that I believe happened out in the state police out there, and there was a tragedy. But anyway, yeah, it's important to have a good contract going. It's important to have something amicable, because if we don't offer, we have things, like I mentioned earlier, Quinn Bill. It's an incentive for any officer with talent, to go forward with their education, and they get a higher percentage of pay based upon if they have a associate or a bachelor, a master's, what have you. I think it's 30, 20, 10 or something like that. But anyway, if we take things like that away, then what happens is there's something that's known as a lateral transfer. An opening can come up in another police department, and they'll go over there where they do have the Quinn Bill, okay? And then we have to train somebody to take that position, So those aren't things you take away when you're doing collective bargaining. They're certainly not. I believe, at all costs, you have good morale through, showing through power of example that you're going to take from within. Some of these in vain searches to find just like Mr. Tattlebaum said, he was great at, getting all these grants and stuff, but, now we have all this equipment. What do we do? Form a reality TV series to use all this stuff? I don't know, I mean, it doesn't do us any good if we don't have the manpower or the resources. But you have to encourage what we have, and I'm a strong believer in what's known as a strong chief. And what a strong chief is they can't be intimidated by any board. I believe what Mr. Sullivan has shared earlier is that we had issues before, and there wasn't harmony in the board. And I believe that I've sat down with Mr. Sullivan. I do agree with both candidates on that issue that you know, he's a good man for the job, you know, he really is. Yeah, I was under the impression through Mr. Sullivan that there were more contracts that were expired than you had mentioned, Mr. Tattlebaum. But yeah, collective bargaining is important. The health insurance thing is a big thing, but that's across the board. You know, so that's something that there is savings. I don't believe being a self-insured entity is in the best interest of the town, but, you know, health insurance is a whole separate issue. That's all. Thank you.
Judith?
I can't remember your question. No, seriously, because,
No, I was there too. I got the same situation when I was sitting up there.
okay, thank you.
Okay, it's a senior moment, we call it.
It's a senior moment, okay.
All right, my question was basically, with the, it appears that things at the town hall are really coming together well.
Okay.
From all of you, okay? How are we going to bring the continent, and let me just emphasize that I believe the people that are doing the job now are doing a great job, and even in the police department, but we have got to make the police department become one again, and to be happy with their jobs, and not, they've been a very unhappy group, and we all know that. What's your plan to bring that happiness?
I know what she's at.
Okay, yeah, now, yeah, thank you. Our chief does operate under the strong chief law, and that means that he or she has ultimate control of what goes on in the department. However, he or she reports to Mr. Sullivan or the town administrator. We also have to use civil service to choose the chief, so that in order for somebody from within our department to be promoted up, he or she would have to take the chief's exam and be eligible for the job. How are we going to make them happy? By example, I think that the board in the past year, we don't text people during meetings. If we argue, we do it nicely, most of the time. Sometimes we have discussions that are heated discussions, and we disagree. But we're all there for the same reason, I think, which is to make the town a better place for everybody. I can't imagine being a police officer. But again, I taught 10th grade. So, you know, did I do a lot of policing of my classroom? Sure. Is it being a policeman a fun job? I can't believe with the things that can harm you today. When we were kids, we could get into a lot of trouble, but we weren't going to necessarily die because of them. Today, there are many more opportunities for kids and adults to make very bad decisions and pay with their lives. Our police department is doing a very good job of trying to control what is, unfortunately, an American problem, probably a worldwide problem.
Okay. Yep, Eddie.
What's your opinion of the proposed transfer development rights bylaw?
Who started? You started, Michael?
Yeah, I believe that is reducing the square footage for building, is that correct?
Transfer rights with the higher density, that's correct.
Well, I don't see how certain areas could be reduced anymore, and, you know, I'm not in favor of it. So, I mean, I'll leave it at that. I'm not in favor of it, and I think that any action to, you know, push that along would be to, I mean, it's a creative way to make revenue, you know, and bring in other tax dollars, but you know, that's, I'm not in favor of it.
Judith.
In its present form, I think it continues to have some problems. However, it's a considerably improved version than the one that was being, I'll use the word, kicked around for last October's town meeting. It's a much more understandable document. The intent is to be able to improve the community overall, Does it have some loopholes in it? Yes, I think it does. But the town meeting will be able to hammer, well, you won't be able to change it on the floor, but the planning board has certainly had meetings, and I would guess that it might not pass.
Peter?
Yeah, I was, through my late mother, who dealt with these issues for years, when the town was trying to negotiate this back 15 years ago, and over the past 10 years, certainly. I support the current draft transfer of development rights bylaw. Understand that this has to go through public hearing at the planning board, where there may be some changes made as a result of the public input that's made. I will say this, gone are the 3-for-1 giveaways that we saw in prior attempts, where somebody would take land out of development and be able to put 3 times the number of houses on the parcel to which the transfer of rights had gone than they would have had they developed under the zoning on the original parcel. You don't see those kinds of density bonuses. You're not going to see somebody take a 500-acre parcel with 3-acre zoning, where as of right, they could have stuck 170 houses in, and then all of a sudden be able to jack 500 houses onto a smaller parcel somewhere else. That's not feasible under this law. You can't do that. The things that I think are currently lacking in this law, and we've been advised that the best approach with something like this is to go slow, so there's been a deliberate strategy to develop the law. I'd like to someday see a commercial component in here. I think it's wise to try to channel commercial development away from sensitive environmental areas. I'd like to see a village component in here if we can ever solve some of the parking issues in either Onset Village or Wareham Village. Right now, those areas have been left out because it's hard to increase density in those areas and put up larger buildings when you don't have any place for people to park. So is it perfect? No. Is it a hell of a lot better than what people were trying to jam down our throats 15 years ago under the guise of smart growth, as though a buzzword meant it was great? Yeah, it's a lot better. So I would support it.
Okay, thank you. Bob, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question earlier, but it's been partially answered. My question was, in the fiscal crisis we find ourselves in, can the town cut its way out of this problem? And I guess Peter answered it. I don't know, and Judy has. I don't know about Michael. My larger problem is this, that all of our elected boards in this town have a credibility problem. And it's not because you're not doing a good job. I commend all of you for giving of your time, and I said this at the FinCom 2 weeks ago. How are all the boards going to be on the same page at the same time and have credibility with the voters so they will go and vote what has to be done if we're going to save the town of Wareham and the services we have?
Okay, so the question is,
What are they going to do collectively as selectmen to build credibility with the voters in this town? Because I would say the majority of the voters in this town do not believe the scenario that has been laid out before us.
Okay.
In terms of the crisis that we face.
Okay.
We need to build credibility if these things are going to, if an override is going to.
good question. All right, I believe we start with Judith.
It is a really good question. I think that you have seen more meetings between the Finance Committee, the School Committee, and the Selectmen in the past 6 months than you have seen in the past 6 years. We have worked really hard with each other to bridge the gap. And my favorite saying is, I hold up my tax bill and it says Town of Wareham. It doesn't say Town of Wareham School Department, Town of Wareham rest of the departments. It doesn't do that. We are all in the same, fiscal boat. I have gotten yelled at by members of the school committee because I tell them that they have the largest credibility issue. Because it seems to me, as a voter and a taxpayer, that, well, we have to lay off X number of people, and then it doesn't happen. This year, it's going to happen. This year, the Department of Revenue has come down and told us that we have things that we have to do, and we've done them. We had to cut $500,000 out of this year's budget. We had to stop. We had to not incur anything that we hadn't yet incurred and save that money before they would set the tax rate. That's the credibility issue. It's not just with the voters of Wareham, it's with everybody. Have we worked well together? I think we really have, other than Cliff yelling at me from time to time. I'll name him. The Finance Committee has been working really hard. I think their members have been open on the blogs about, we can't really give you a number on what an override would cost because we haven't figured it out yet. I can tell you that I don't know what the number's ultimately going to be. I can tell you with today's budget that is balanced, you are not going to like it, period. There will be 45 people in the town who do not have a job on July 1st. And that is town-wide. If that's what you want, that's going to be what is presented to you. You will have an option. I think I answered your question.
Okay, Peter?
Yeah, as far as the credibility gap goes, one of the things that I ran on initially 2 years ago was that we wanted to get away from the political practice of demonizing our institutions, demonizing our employees, demonizing each other, the constant bickering between the selectmen, the school committee, finance committee, the whole 9 yards. I've worked, frankly, my butt off to try to bring some civility to our politics. I mean, is it perfect? No. Do we always agree? No. But I do think that the voters can look at the selectmen and the school committee and the finance committee and say, at least they talk, at least they get together, at least they listen to each other. These are things that were not happening before. And I do take a lot of pride in that, because I think I've tried to drive that as much as I possibly can, both in my first year, where the board was a little more challenging than it is now, and since I've been chairman for the past year. If you're talking about how do you persuade people to vote for an override, that's sort of the same question, but it's also a little bit different. In order to persuade people, you have to, as Selectman Whiteside said, this is what you're going to get with the base budget, the bare bones, the balanced budget. These are the things you get. This is the stuff you lose. You have to show them a reasonable alternative. You have to show them that you're going to try to consolidate services between town and school. You have to show them that you're going to spend the money wisely. You're going to have to show them that you're going to make some capital investments, and it is all just not going to be for hiring people. So in order to be credible, you've got to have a good plan. That's what we hope is presented. I can tell you, as I said earlier during the introduction, I will support a plan that makes sense. I will not support a plan that just throws money at problems without any foresight. I'm not saying I anticipate that I will see such a plan, because I believe in both our town administrator and our superintendent. I believe that they will work together to find the best places for the money to go. We hope to see that soon, to bring it out to the public, and to work on it collectively going forward.
Thank you. Michael?
Well, that sounds like anticipation, but I think insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. When has an override ever passed in this town?
Never.
Never. I hope we don't have to pay for a special election to have one. But, everybody's hurting. I stress this, because the problems that we are having are all systemic, and they come from the very top on down. We're living in a country where, as I said before, not everybody is a rocket scientist. Not everybody is, an advanced, we don't have any jobs for, the working class, and the jobs we do have are lousy. Some of these companies undermine the entire the entire spirit of the American culture, and that, you know, take the Walmarts, for instance. I'm sorry. But they encourage the people that don't have full-time hours to go and apply for state benefits and things like that. And it's systemic all the way down, you know. It's a much bigger problem. I mean, we need to learn how to take care of our own, you know. And nobody's going to be in favor of spending more money right now. I understand that, believe me, I mean, my heart and soul is, it goes out to the educators and I too want to see a great school system. I want to see a strong town, you know. But the regular people, like myself that are paying taxes I do a lot of outreach as much as I can, volunteering. I mean, I've done a lot for Marion lately. Because I'm very active in the Coast Guard Auxiliary, like I said, and we serve Wareham, my flotilla, and Marion and Onset here, we had a building over there that was donated to the town, and I just set up a real exceptional surround sound presentation system, so we can, I try to give in any way I can, and I'm a listener, and I'll listen to ideas, I mean, contemplation of override, I bet, I'd give you any wager it'll never pass, because, people aren't willing to pay more revenue, they're just not working. And what's going on is, I mean, it's systemic. Like I said, we just continue unemployment benefits. We continue things that we're plugging holes in a sinking ship. And that's what's going on, I'd love to be able to give a little more and stuff, but, everybody's hurting, and a government as a whole has to adjust itself to, what we have to work with. That's all there is to it, Would I support an override? You'd have to show me a heck of a plan. I'll give Mr. Talabon that. You'd have to show me a heck of a plan that's going to make a big difference before I would. But it's not what I think. It's what every voter in this town thinks. Am I up?
Yep.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Okay, yes, sir.
Are there any opportunities for regional help in sharing costs? For example, you mentioned conservation officers, and everybody along the bay here has probably the same needs for conservation help. And is there a way to have a combined conservation officer, as an example, with Marion, Mattapoisett, or any other agency,
Okay, who
state?
first? Was it?
I was, so.
You were, so it's Peter first.
Yeah, that's going to be solely dependent upon the job you're talking about. I know that up until August of this past year, for I think 3 years, we shared a planner with the town of Rochester. He was in Rochester 2 days a week. He was in Wareham 3 days a week. I think in a town with our growth potential, we're better off with a full-time planner. However, I would rather have a part-time planner than no planner. We have budgeted for a full-time planner. Conservation agent, that's a tough one. You've got 54 miles of coastline. He's an active fellow. He does not spend 20 hours doing work and 20 hours playing video games on the computer, I can tell you that. As far as regionalization, it's something you can do, but you've got to look at it in terms of what can you arrange with other towns. What other towns are going to be willing to partner with Wareham on things? We've got a bit of a tough reputation we've developed over the years, particularly with how employees have been treated by people in the past. How do we overcome that? How do we get the confidence of officials in Marion that that's a thing of the past, Wareham doesn't eat its own anymore, and they won't eat ours at the same time? And it's a difficult thing. It's pretty easy to break stuff. It's a lot harder to fix it. Right now we're in the fixing business. We've got a lot more fixing to do, I think, before we can really have that meaningful outreach to the other communities. When it comes to the districts, they're entities unto their own. We're working with them to try to do some joint purchasing. We're trying to do some efficient things with them. I can tell you, I'm looking out at an Onset Prudential Committee member sitting right here, and it'll be a cold day in hell before the citizens of Onset decide to do away with their fire and water district and join the town of Wareham. And that is their decision and solely their decision to make. We can't take over them, just like we can't take over the town of Marion. They're a separate legislative creation. They'd have to vote themselves out of existence. Then they would have to get the legislature to go along with them voting themselves out of existence. Not happening, folks. So regionalization, it's a nice theory. Putting it into practice is damn hard.
Okay, Michael?
I actually forgot the question, I'm sorry. Had an emergency there.
In order to, is it possible for the town of Wareham to share officers or like conservation or something like that with other communities in order to help defray costs?
To answer your question, and I'll be quite brief on that, is I would really have to do some research there, you know. As I said earlier, I'm really confused on the whole water district thing, and I know a whole bunch of people that are, and it is a legislative thing, and if I'm understanding what Mr. Talbot saying is there's no way to dissolve that at all, and I don't know, I'd have to really do my research. I don't believe that. You know, anything can be changed. I'm sorry?
Never mind, sorry.
Okay. All right. I hate the word no, you know, but I don't know. I would have to do some research there. I believe that as far as consolidating, using the state bidding process, in which I don't see that happening across the board in this town, you know, but I mean, those are cost-effective measures, you know, and it can be very disruptive not to use that. I mean, costly rather. So, you know, there's ways, but, you know, I can't intelligently answer the direct question as of right now.
Okay, thank you. Judith?
I think the conservation agent may not be the best example, but there are certainly ways of consolidating personnel so that more is done by fewer, okay? But before we go regionalization, we really have to get our act together within the town. And I think that has really been worked on in the past year and a half. And I'll use the school and the town particularly as an example, even though I don't really use, you know, two sets of words for the town. Mr. Sullivan and Mr. McMillan, the business manager at the school, talk on a regular basis. They are trying to, we are working toward a town-wide grant writer. We are working toward a town-wide purchasing agent. We are working toward a town-wide personnel person, you know. So we have that to do, and there are some savings there. For instance, we have 2 municipal maintenance garages. We have a bus garage that is under the school's jurisdiction. And we have a municipal maintenance garage right next door. They share a fence. And so we have 2 sets of, you know, guys draining oil, and it's nuts to have 2 buildings that are serving the same purpose. So I think we're going to be working on ourselves first. To speak to the 2 fire districts, water districts, it may be at some time that the people who run those 2 separate political entities will recognize some cost benefits, some savings in consolidating some of their delivery of service. You can't make them join together, but I certainly see a lot of cooperation between the 2 districts, much more than there has been in the past. And I think that certain of the selectmen have reached out to try and get, you know, everybody on the same page. We don't all have to have the same last name, but we all do pay the Wareham tax bill.
Anyone else? Yes, Henry.
Question on the seniors.
Mhm.
That they have a deadline that they have to vacate the multi-service building. Is that true or is that false?
I'm not aware there's a deadline. Are you?
No. but we can answer that.
Okay, they can, Michael, are you comfortable answering that?
Oh, sure, I don't know if they have a deadline, I'm not sure. I don't see,
Address the crowd.
thank you.
Sorry.
No, quite all right. I don't understand why we can't provide services to our seniors and utilize town spaces. Is there a deadline or something? Are they being evicted from the multi-service center?
This is what some of the seniors are telling me.
Oh, well, I would definitely be opposed to that, but I don't, I think that, I don't think senior services should be forced out of anything. I think that as a community, we should pitch in a little bit, because, I mean, of course, I mean, these senior issues and whatnot, these are things that people use as platforms to get elected and whatnot. You know, it's in my heart and soul. I live with a 94-year-old, and she can't move around and whatnot. And when I'm not out and about at the gym or whatever, or here or there, then we watch movies together and we do things. I try to get her out in the chair and walk around in the warm or whatever. But the seniors are very near and dear to my heart. I hope we're not evicting them. I don't know the inner windings of that just yet, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Did anyone answer that question?
Well, wait, there's still two others to answer. Judith?
The funding for the Council on Aging for the upcoming fiscal year has been cut back. There is, however, some revolving fund money and some self-funding programs, and they will continue. We are actively looking for appropriate space for senior activities. That may mean that they may move to another location, or it may mean that other services, are joined together with them. I have viewed the current location, and I'm not sure I'd like to spend a whole lot of time there. I like windows. And I've actually spoken with two entities. Mr. Slavin and I actually went to the Hammond School and spoke with the people from the Boys and Girls Club and asked them whether they would object to having seniors in the other end of the building, which is it's a school-owned, town-owned building. So it was a courtesy question, but it was also a question of seeing how the two age groups could work together in a building that is being half-used right now and that we own. To a previous speaker, we own it, let's use it, and let's use it well.
Peter?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any current plan to evict anyone from there. I will tell you that that building was a decrepit old wreck when I went to there in 3rd grade. It has not improved in the meantime. It's not a great place for the seniors. We've got different rooms that are separate and apart from each other. We've got people on different floors. They've all got to go downstairs into the old basketball court to food. It's not an ideal location. However, I don't think anybody's looking to throw them out at this point. I do commend Selectman Slavin and Selectman Whiteside for taking the initiative to see if they can find a superior space for them that would likely be on one floor. It would be easier for the seniors to use. They wouldn't be separated from one another. Where that exactly takes us, where they research and what they say when they come back to the board is to be determined, Henry. But I do, there's no plans to throw them out in the street. I don't know where that came from, and
There's no deadline yet, no.
I don't think that that's very reliable information, if you've been told that.
This is where I understand.
Yeah.
Some of the seniors say,
Yeah.
came
All
to
right.
my house and tell me this, that's, so I have to have an answer when I get back.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't.
Great.
yeah.
No,
Certainly, nobody has floated such a plan past us, and we'd be the first to hear it.
thank you.
Okay, Jack?
Yes, my question is about the Tremont Nail.
Someone, oh, good.
Every year, it gets older, and every year, there's more money that's gonna be needed to do repairs or whatever to it. Just your feelings on the Tremont Nail.
I think you're first.
Am I?
No, Peter's
Oh.
first. Peter's first.
I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch one of our meetings, I want to say about a month and a half ago, when we were bandying about the question of whether we wanted to, and cover your ears, children, piss away $595,000 on a sprinkler system for that thing. I was just in there today looking at it in connection with some issues with a dam that's out there. It is a mess. It was a pig that we bought in a poke. We never did the proper environmental work to ascertain whether there was any contamination there. We hired a firm to poke around on the ground and look at oil spots. We never did any subsurface investigation. I trembled to think what's in the ground there because as an environmental attorney, I can tell you that you cannot have a metal foundry that produces steel nails, plating, or any of those things without arsenic in soils, lead in soils, mercury in soils, and the whole gamut of hazardous materials that eventually, if you find them, you gotta clean them up. It was an absolutely stupid acquisition from that point of view. Frankly, I'm tired of sinking money into it. I don't support throwing any more money into it. I would like to see an article come forward at town meeting this fall to pay off the bond. We have an opportunity this year, because we're in the 10th year of the bond, to pay the damn thing off. And at that point, we own it outright. We don't have to spend money necessarily insuring it. We don't have to spend any more money on it if we don't want to. It's something that has made it very difficult for the present members of the Community Preservation Committee to overcome. It's brought a lot of, I think, unnecessary scrutiny on them, even though many of them didn't serve at the time it was purchased. I think it's one of our colossal mistakes. So, there you have it.
Tell us how you really feel,
Yeah.
Peter. Okay, Mike?
I would agree wholeheartedly on that issue. I don't, it's not like it's the Taj Mahal or something. All I know of Tremont Nail is they made those flat nails there that they used on the old barnboard floors and whatnot, but I don't, I drive by it every day in the morning at 5:30, and I don't know if it can be, could it be leased or whatnot? It could, revenue be brought in by using it for some other purpose, but I would agree if there is a bond on that, it would be a wise idea to decrease liability. I had a friend of mine in Boston years ago. He owned a really fancy place on Beacon Street, and he decided to be weather efficient and replace all his windows, and he did so without checking with the Historical Society. It cost him like $30,000 to make new wood frame windows to put back to replace the ones he was trying to save some money on. So I don't know what all the repercussions are as far as historical value, Historical Society, and this and that, but I don't see where it's any great. I would agree that it was probably an absurd acquisition, and can the town do anything with it to bring in revenue legally? I don't know. I'd have to do my research. If they could get rid of it, I'd go along with that. I mean, there's too many other things that are more important right now besides an old nail factory, and that roof looks like it's gonna cave any day anyway. I don't know. That's all I have to say on the issue.
Judith?
How many of you have been to Salem, Massachusetts? How many of you have visited Old Ironsides? How many of you have been to Washington, D.C.? How many of you have visited historic Pennsylvania? How many of you are aware that we have more than 30 buildings that were built prior to 1750 in this town? We got them, ladies and gentlemen. We own as Mr. Teitelbaum says, the damn thing. You know what? I think it's an awesome building. There are people who are doing an archaeological study on it now. If somebody made a mistake,
Don't let them dig.
Environmental nightmare.
excuse me, I worked in New Bedford for 23 years. I know what a brownfield looks like, and I know what a hazardous waste site looks like, okay? Like the harbor. What I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, is rather than being critical of what we did, let's find a business-like and civil way around the problem, if that's what it is, okay? We have a dam that is going to have to be replaced. The ownership of the dam is something that is going to have to be researched. Just because it's old, you're going to get rid of it? Really? Yeah. I don't think so. Look at what other cities and towns in Massachusetts conquered. How many of you have, been there? This town was an important site during the War of 1812. Why are we denying opportunities to ourselves? Is it going to cost us money? Yeah. Do I advocate spending money on it instead of buying, having 3 or 4 school teachers? No. But I don't think that we should be throwing flames, lighting matches, or inviting the British to torch it in the summertime.
Okay. All right, wait a minute. No, Tootsie?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a trivial question. Basically, I would like to know the status of the Veterans Plate parking within the kiosk realms. Formerly, there used to be allowed parking by veterans with veterans plates, along with the handicapped, exempted metering or fees. And I'd like to know the status of that right at this point and what each person's position might be on it.
Okay, thank you, Tootsie. You went first that time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Michael?
I have severe handicap issues, so I would support both veteran and those with disabilities in need of those without fee. That's my position.
Judith?
They are, in fact, feeless now. All you have to do is show the placard and they will let you park. If you're talking about the kiosks.
Yeah, that's the policy. It's also state law. So they're exempted under state law from municipal parking charges, along with the handicaps
Now,
plates.
well, the town administrator posed a different scenario and said that the law did not apply to people with veterans plates. He said the handicapped veterans plates, but we're talking about veterans plates, not disabled veterans plates, but veterans plates.
No, I don't recall him making that distinction before us, anyway. I don't know what other information you might have.
Well, the exemption, I think.
But if there is a question, they will check on it,
Thank you.
correct?
Yeah.
Yes, we will.
Absolutely.
All right. In the back.
Commercial and residential taxes are the same, and for the last couple of years, we've been hearing that when Walmart comes, Walmart is going to donate an ambulance. These new businesses that are coming in town, and if we're such in a bind, what can they, instead of the residents always backing everybody else up, what can these new residents give to people here, where they're sharing the same commercial and residential taxes? What can they do? I mean, our libraries at risk, so many things are at risk in the town. What can they do for us? I mean, we're supporting them coming into our town. They're gonna make the business, they're going to make the money, but what do they do for us? I mean, why is it always on the back of the residents to do something in this town? I mean, you got an ambulance coming from, I mean, that was a couple of years now, Walmart. But we haven't heard of anybody else doing something for the town of Wareham. I mean, you got a lot of business coming in, you got a bank, you got a motel, you got a medical building. Yes, we are glad to have all that, but many of us are generations here. We need something done for us too.
Okay, thank you. Judith, it starts with you.
Very good question. There are a couple of ways that, first of all, I think I'd like to correct something that you said. A lot of local businesses do donate. They donate to the schools, they donate to different, playground building, that kind of things, Lowe's and Home Depot, and I'm not, if I start naming people, I'll leave people out, but our local businesses really do support the town in many ways. The better way to have them support us, however, is to have the selectmen change the ratio on the tax split, which we can do on January? When did we do that?
Yeah, we set
We-
when we got the Department of Revenue approval of the raw number, at that point, we have the option, if we want, to split the tax rate.
Instead of 1-to-1, it would be different, and the commercial and industrial would pay more than the residential. That ultimately is a solution I think that is not a bad idea.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, further to your question, Sharon, we've been advised by any number of people that you don't want to do this until your residential to commercial tax base is at least 80% residential to 20%. We're coming up pretty close.
We are close.
We're within a percentage point or two of getting there, and at that point, it's going to have to be a serious discussion. The thinking is that if you have the sort of reliance upon the residents for tax purposes that you do now, that you want to keep the tax rates the same so that you're not discouraging business, because ultimately, if you're giving the businesses a little bit of a break, if there's more business, then your residents are still benefiting in the end. So it's a matter of where the scale is. And actually, as selectmen, we get to put our thumb on the scale, you might say, and go one way or the other. Again, we've been advised to wait until it gets to at least 20% before we consider a split tax rate.
Okay. Michael?
I would agree. As far as business goes, they should step up to the plate. And, an ambulance 4 years ago, and going back to when I was talking earlier about, companies like Walmart specifically, I'm not happy with, jobs aren't jobs unless, jobs aren't jobs for the working class unless they have benefits. Should they step up to the plate and throw some more money into the community voluntarily? Yes, they should. All businesses are hurt now, as well as the working class. I don't believe in a split tax rate. I'm sorry, I don't. It discourages business, and businesses can go to other towns, and it's that simple. It's happened. I mean, look at how many tax breaks we give to these big companies and let them move into Rhode Island. I mean, this is going to a state issue, but I mean, it can be systemic from the bottom up or from the top down. If you play around with those things, I believe that it's going to discourage business, and businesses won't want to stay in a town. They'll go somewhere else. So I don't believe in splitting tax rates. Why punish a business owner? Why punish a business owner just because he's doing business in this town? Should they be helping to foster and to provide jobs, good jobs, and hire from within our community? Sure, they should. But there's a lot of these huge mammoth things that undermine, I think, the values of the working citizen. And yeah, they should voluntarily, give a little more, of course, especially when their numbers, profits are through the roof, and if we're talking about the big ones. That's all. Thank you. Good question.
Yeah. Judith would like to add something.
Just like to point out that we do have a school to work program in the high school where students are able to spend either a morning or an afternoon every other day at a work site, and that they get credit for that. And it's kind of like an internship, and local businesses do, in fact, participate in that program.
Does anyone else want to add anything else? No? Okay. It's now 10 o'clock. Henry, you had another part to your question?
They were talking about dam a while ago.
Oh, different question.
How much progress is being done, or what is on that Tremont Dam? What is how far before fixing it or whatever?
Yeah, you start.
Well, just to clarify, the dam that we all think of as the Tremont Dam really isn't the Tremont Dam. The Tremont Dam is further upstream.
Yes,
It's the Parker Mills Dam that Elm Street goes over, where the gift shop is and on one side and the Tremont Nail on the other. We did obtain some state funding, thanks to Senator Pacheco. We got a $165,000 cash grant. We can borrow up to $835,000 at low interest. Right now, we're in the process of researching who actually owns the dam. It's got, from a legal perspective, it's got a very convoluted history of ownership. You've got cranberry growers that have water rights. The question is, does the cranberry grower also own some of the dam? We're trying to resolve those to see really who is responsible to repair it before we go forward with a plan. I can tell you that I don't think it's in any particular danger of failing immediately. It is on the state's list of things that we need to address and repair, and we have an obligation to do that because they can start fining us if we don't. Nonetheless, we have gotten that funding. I would frankly have preferred to have gotten $1 million cash grant for it as opposed to 165 cash and 835 as a loan. Once we resolve the ownership issues, then at that point it'll be time, if there is another party involved, to get together with them and figure out the best way to join forces to get the thing repaired. And this, by the way, is a new initiative from the state. They originally had provided funding to remove dams. Selectman Slavin attended a conference on this, I want to say probably a year and a half ago, where he suggested, well, not all dams are going to be removed. Maybe you should put some money into repair dams. So that's where that came from. So you really owe him your thanks, that the fact that there's really any money to do this.
Can I speak?
No, I'm sorry.
Hate that word. I'm sorry.
You're next.
Yeah, I'm just, I don't know enough about it to make comment on it. I'm kind of confused. We got funding for something we don't know if we own or we don't own, but we're researching that, and at the time when we realize whoever owns it, then they may be able to contribute. That's kind of how I'm understanding that. You know, I'm not even sure how we would appropriate money before you know who owns it, but I don't know enough about it to, you know, that would be a research thing, but, you know, I've never heard of funding something before. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's the state's money, I guess, but, no, it's not really not. It's like 800 million, it sounds like, and, you know, I just, that's the only time I've ever heard of appropriating something before you know who owns it. You know, that's odd. But anyway, that's where I stand on that, I guess.
All right, Judith?
I would echo what Mr. Teitelbaum has said. It was a grant as well as a very low-cost loan to fix the problem. The problem exists. We have to figure out whose portion of what is what, but it has to be fixed, and we've been directed to do that.
Okay, all right. Okay, so it's 5 after.
Do you allow me 1 minute?
No, Henry, I'm actually gonna cut it off for tonight. It's after 10 o'clock, so.
I repaired one of the dams they had before, that's why I went.
Okay, well, you could talk with the candidates afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for attending tonight. Don't forget, March 28th, Friday, 7 p.m. at the high school. It's the Notable Blend, the a cappella 4, and the Wareham High School Concert Choir. Please help support the Summer of Celebration, and everybody vote on April 1st. Thank you.
Thank you.
Plowing.